All right, so today we're going to talk about your keynote presentation and more specifically what stories to put in your keynote. First of all, you should have stories in your keynote presentation, whether it's in a boardroom or on a big stage. You want to have stories in there. But a lot of the times I get a question, and the question is, what stories should I use in my keynote? So today that's what we're going to discuss. 3 rules for what stories to put in your keynote presentation. Now, before we get started, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel for more ongoing tips to help you to become a better speaker and presenter, whether it's for keynotes or just short speeches or TED Talks. Now, 3 rules for populating your keynotes with stories. Make sure the stories follow these 3 rules and they will connect with your audience and they'll be appropriate for your keynote presentation and likely get you rebooked to speak many different places. The first rule is the rule of reflection. Now, what do I mean by that? Your story should make your audience reflect on their own lives. So no matter what your story is about, make sure you have points in there where you can ask them reflection questions. Have you ever had a time when this happened? Or you know how sometimes this can happen and you respond this way. You want to make sure that your audience is reflecting on their own life as they're listening to your story. So ask yourself, can I have questions in my story, or is the story something that the audience can relate to? They can look back at their own life and kind of feel what you're feeling, even though your circumstances may be different. The reflection of their own life makes them connect to you through your story. The second rule, and it's related, is the relatability rule. Now, it's related to the first one. I mean, if you want to have your audience reflect on their own lives, if you can tell a story that relates to your audience, if you have a story about being a parent, most adults, a lot of adults anyways, can relate to that. But even if your story itself doesn't translate well as far as being able to connect with audience members, they haven't experienced what you've experienced before, find some element in your story that they can relate to. For example, my background was in policing. I was charged with a crime I didn't commit, and I ended up spending time in jail in solitary confinement. That's not a situation that's relatable for most people. However, what's relatable within that story is the feeling of isolation. Especially as I film this now, we're in the midst of a pandemic. People can relate to being isolated, to having days that feel repetitive, to not being able to see family and friends as much as they want to. So make sure you emphasize the elements of your story that is relatable to your audience, and that way they'll connect even if the experience is not a shared experience. Most people I know haven't been through what I've gone through, and I haven't gone through a lot of things that a lot of other speakers have gone through, but when they can add elements that are relatable to me, I connect to their story. The final key for your story, for your keynotes, is the reward rule. So you want to make sure you reward your audience by solving a pain or curing a problem they have through your story. Now, what I'll do is when I'm actually putting together a keynote, I will think first of the pains of my audience. I'll think, okay, what are they going through that they need help with and that they need to overcome? So, for example, one of my audiences I speak to is youth, and one of the problems they need to overcome is when they see social media and when they see people living their best life, they feel less than. They feel that they aren't enough. And so I want to build their self-worth. So that's my starting point. I need to reward them through my story. So I need to give them a story that gives them a reward at the end, something that they can take to change their lives, to make them feel better about themselves. So I think about the problem of not feeling good enough, and I ask myself, what story of my life has taught me that I need to embrace who I am no matter what I see around me? And so I found a story that has the outcome that gives them what they need. And the outcome for me in the story I told was to embrace your imperfection. I have a saying that I use: in our imperfections, we make the deepest connections. And what I do through the story now is I tell my story, but I end by making sure that they get the reward of, listen, what you need to do is embrace your imperfection. So don't always start with, I got to tell this story. Start with, what is the reward you want your audience to take away from? And then go back and say, what story gives them that reward? So there you have it. 3 rules to populating your keynotes with stories. Use these 3 rules: the reflection, the relatability, and the reward rules, and you will find stories that will be better matched to the audience you're speaking to, and people will connect with your message, they will connect to your keynote, and you will be booked to speak over and over again. If you found this video helpful, go to 52publicspeakingtips.com, link is below, and you'll get more tips to becoming an even better speaker. And of course, if you like this video, make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel, watch these other videos, and let me help you on your journey to becoming the best speaker you can be.